Okay, what is ScrumBan and why is it a popular option for teams? Okay, so I'm going to assume you know what Scrum is. I'm going to assume you know what Kanban is. ScrumBan is simply the mashing together of Scrum and Kanban. Very often the way it presents is you have a team doing Scrum, but for whatever reason, that cadence isn't working as well for them and they decide to let it go. And to be honest, what then happens is they veer all the way over to Kanban and they give that a go and it works well, but it's not quite working for them. And they'll, the teams I've worked with make that leap a few times, but they'll settle on somewhere in the middle. Very often it's Scrum without planning. Okay? So they drop the planning meeting, but they still have daily Scrums. Every day they're planning, they're synchronizing, they're making sure they're working on the most important things. Okay? They're still going to have a review because they need to be in people's diaries to have a review. It's easier to have it on a cadence. They're going to have a retrospective because it makes sense. They're committed to continuous improvement. They want to be better, and it's nice and easy to put it in after the review. We do a review, we do a retro. We used to do it when we did Scrum. Maybe, very often, they were still doing it when they were doing Kanban. So let's just leave that there. We know we've got a backstop. Okay? But they don't do planning. Instead, they work with their product owner on a more ad hoc, informal basis. The product owner's role becomes one of ensuring that the most important things are always at the top of the backlog and that they're available to talk with the team as needed, which could be at any point through the day, through the week. Because the way it's now going to work, we don't have planning. So as people in the team finish work, they're going to look at the backlog and they'll say, that's the next most important thing. Let's pull it. Let's get it into a state where we can start working. Is it there already? Because they're still doing refinement. And if it isn't, let's go find that product, or let's go find that customer, whoever it is that we need to talk to, and they're going to start. So it's going to be this continuous pull, but every 2 weeks we've still got a review. We're going to review whatever is done. Okay? We're not going to say we thought we would do this stuff in the sprint and we achieved this. We're just going to be saying we've done this much stuff. And because I'm nice and data-led, it's going to be, and compared to previous times around this loop, we are 5% delivering 5% more stuff, if you care. So we're dropping the planning, everything else reasonably stays the same. Some teams will have variations on that, but for me, that's the most common one. And why do they do this? Well, I invariably start teams with Scrum. Some would say it's preference, but I've found it to be the best grounding for a new team when it comes to Agile. If they've never worked in this way, they have to learn a whole new way of doing their job. So this gives them that. Kanban can be used, and it can be used to great effect, but I've found it's easier to let things slide in a Kanban approach than in a Scrum approach. Okay? Because you take a 2-week sprint, at the end of 2 weeks, you've done it or you've not done it. With Kanban, some organisations are going to say, well, we're not done yet, and they're going to let it go and let it go and let it go. And that's not ideal. Okay, so I tend to start with Scrum. And when teams get good at it, they find it constraining. They start thinking, we don't like this. We want to do something different. We want to be more flow-based. And these are all good things to get to. And they move over to Kanban. And that's great. But over time, they'll start realising that maybe their organisation, it doesn't work that well for them. And they'll drift back towards Scrum. And as I said, they will go through this cycle a few times very often. And there's nothing wrong, because if they're adapting based on their learning, based on the work at hand, this is precisely what I'm looking for in the teams I work with, is they're taking control of how they do their job. Okay. Very often, as the team matures, it will realise there's benefits in both sides, and they'll pick and choose. They're not going to stick to a framework, they're going to create their own. Okay. And it will still flex and morph and evolve over time. But really, when you take a step back, it's going to look like a hybrid between Scrum and Kanban. And really, that is a great thing. They've now got a thing that works for them, their team, in their context, in their organisation. Okay? And you can't really ask for more than that as an Agile coach. If you've got to this point in the video, I hope you've enjoyed it. If so, a like would be appreciated. If you want to hear more from me, more answers to questions that maybe you've got in the Agile world, please subscribe to the channel. And if you've got a question that you really want answered, drop it in the comments. I promise we'll get around to it. Thank you.